He is a writer, a director, a visual artist, and Emmy Award-winning actor on the stage, in the movies, and on TV, appearing in films and shows such as Get Smart, NYPD Blue, ER, 24, Malcolm in the Middle, Prison Break, Modern Family, Dead Presidents, and more. He has a license to fly and a black belt to fight, and we sincerely hope that we do not persuade him to use either of those two skills during the course of this conversation. Thank you very much to Monti Sharp for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That was such a great intro. I'm gonna send you my stuff so you can do my intro. Now, you attended the highly acclaimed University of North Carolina School of the Arts before embarking directly into a professional theatrical career in New York City. What initially sparked your interest in the craft and sent you on down this journey, if you will?
Well, if I go all the way back, it started for me when I was probably in about fourth grade. I had an older brother who was in junior high school at that time, and he was involved in plays and speech tournaments and things like that. And so he would have his little brother help him run lines so he could learn his lines. And so I used to do that with him. And I just thought that was the most fun. That was just a great thing that he was doing. So when I got in junior high school, I wanted to do that. So I started doing plays and things like that. But I think the real kickoff for me was when I was about 16. I was in high school at that time, and I saw a PBS version, a recording of Sam Shepard's play True West with Gary Sinise and John Malkovich. At the time, I didn't know what I was watching. I just happened to be channel surfing, and it came on, and I was riveted. And I thought, man, that was great, and I want to do that. And so that's really what kind of started me on the information gathering path of how one goes about becoming able to do what I had just seen.
I'm sorry if I missed that. How old were you around that time?
I was about 16, maybe 17, somewhere in like 9th, 10th grade, something like that.
So, and then you went to the college after graduating high school is when you really got into the acting training?
I actually went from high school to a university in my hometown. It was at the time, it was Northeast Louisiana University. Now it's the University of Louisiana at Monroe.
Oh,
but they didn't have a theater program. And so I enrolled in the radio, TV, film program with a filmmaking emphasis. And so I got involved with a lot of things there. I got into television news. I did a weekend news spot where we called it Campus Close-Up. So I was a desk anchorman for campus news. Then that led to a weekend job at the local CBS affiliate television station in my hometown, KNOE-TV CBS. So I started doing radio news there and the occasional weekend news package. And I was very good at that. And I think it just kind of made me think at that time, wow, I could make a career out of this, but what about acting? What am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
So I quit that, and then auditioned for the School of the Arts in North Carolina, got accepted, and then just took off and went and did that.
That's really cool because, like most people, well, it proves that you were really after the acting craft, not just being in front of the camera. Like you could have easily been like, all right, I got something here. I don't have to go anywhere. I could, flex this muscle a little bit, but you're after more. So what was the most important thing that you learned from your schooling, whether it's your hometown or when you went to North Carolina?
Probably the most important thing I learned in North Carolina really was how to take responsibility for the work and also how to create a process. Prior to that point, it had been sort of a people-pleasing kind of an approach. When I was in high school, it was like, well, what do I do to win these competitions? Or when I got into radio, TV, film, is, oh, what do I do in order to, deliver the news or gather the news? But when I got to School of the Arts, it was more like the program kind of stepped back and they said, well, what is it that you do? What do you do? And so you were sort of kind of tasked to evaluate that. Shit, what do I do? I'm not really sure what the hell I do. But by the time you leave there, you have a pretty good idea of what it is that you do.
Let me ask you this. What do you think was the most significant challenge that you faced during the transition from turning your training now into a professional career?
Oh man, I think it was a couple of different things, not the least of which was just figuring out how to survive in New York.
Mm,
I mean, I grew up in a pretty small town. Going to the School of the Arts in North Carolina was really the first time that I had been out of the state. Maybe I think it was like the second time I had been on an airplane when I flew there.
mhm.
So I recall really rather being nervous and puzzled as to, and this is honest, like I didn't know. I thought, how the hell is this plane going to land in New York City? Because my idea of New York City was buildings and stuff. So I was really, really kind of puzzled about that and excited to see that.
Yeah.
Of course, I found that out. But once I got on the ground there, oh man, it was just, chaos. And so to me, it was like, well, how do you, 5 million people do it. I know, because there they are, they're surviving here. Now, how do I figure this out? The acting part, that was that was really not a big deal for me. I thought I had full of confidence. I had a lot of experience under my belt at that point, and I thought if I can just survive here and find out where the decision makers are, I can make it. And that was a big learning curve for me.
And this was this had to be like early 90s or late 80s when you got to New York.
This was like late 80s. I think I got to New York the first time in 87, maybe. I think it was like maybe 1987, something like that. I actually, before I went to School of the Arts, I went to what's called the Southeastern Theater Conference auditions, which is a central place where you audition for like, hundreds of summer stock production companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. So I flew to Richmond, Virginia one night. I auditioned for a bunch of summer stock companies. The next morning, I flew to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I auditioned for the school. When I got back, I got hired by a company called Al & Albert Productions in New York. And we were doing a 50s rock and roll show at Action Park in Vernon Valley, New Jersey. So the summer before I actually showed up at School of the Arts, I went to New York to do 2 weeks of rehearsal for the Action Park show. Then we moved to New Jersey, did that show all summer. I saved money. And then I went to North Carolina. So that was around, I think, 87 or so. So I actually got to New York first, but for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then I went to New Jersey, then North Carolina, then back to New York. So all that was around 87, 88, something like that.
So the Action Park show, is that like the Action Park in New Jersey, like the Class Action Park? But
It
like,
is the class action.
Oh yeah, we know. Yeah, we know about that.
that's
Yeah.
Are you? Can we find you anywhere? We're on the Netflix documentary.
yeah.
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
Although I think
That's
they do mention the shows that went on there.
Yeah.
We did the summer show, and then of course they have winter stuff too. Yeah, pretty notorious park.
Yes.
And before you got on, before you made your way onto like film and television, you did a lot of off-Broadway shows and theater in New York, right?
Yeah.
Did you find the theater community to be, as it's portrayed usually in media, is kind of like in New York specifically, like kind of like cutthroat, or did you find it to be like inviting and accommodating to a new actor like yourself?
I had a pretty, I would think, a rather unusual experience there because I was there for maybe 2 or 3 months. I got my headshots. I did my quantity. I did a mass mailing. I got 2 phone calls. And out of those 2 phone calls, one agent took me on. And shortly after that, I booked my first show. So that was all within like the first year.
Nice.
So I think that was pretty extraordinary for, a new actor in New York. So my experience wasn't that it was necessarily cutthroat. It was actually pretty welcoming, to me. And I thought, okay, this is how it's done. This is what I've read about in the books. This is what you do.
Mhm.
And it worked out. And once I got in there, once you start working and you start getting around to theaters and different things, you start seeing a little bit of the dark side in terms of competition with actors and things like that,
Go on.
that was a bit, I don't know. I was a country boy who, when I got to New York, man, it wore me out because I waved to everybody. Because that's what you do at home.
They're not waving back. They're not holding the door. No Southern hospitality.
None
Hey,
of
I'm
that.
walking here.
That's so that was a very that was one of the first learning curves that I had to sort of learn, which was people think nice is weak, and you tend to become a target. But moreover, it's just exhausting. There's a lot of people in here. You can't wave to everybody. But I just had a good attitude, and I was pleased to be there, and I was, very happy. And maybe that kind of energy that I was putting out just came back at me.
Yeah. Was Guiding Light, was that shot in New York, or did you move for that? So that was shot. So
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a perfect segue. That's so.
This is David, charming, cool, and more than just a blue band.
King of the alleys, I see.
I love this private school sass.
If you want to see how bad he can be, quick, turn on the light. Guiding Light.
We got a meeting like this.
1992 to 1994, you worked on the daytime soap opera Guiding Light. You starred as David Grant. This earned you a spot in TV Guide's top 10 list for soap's sexiest stars. And you also picked up a Daytime Emmy Award, as well as a Soap Opera Digest Award for your work on the show. What was the experience like for you landing such a solid gig that garnered you these fantastic accolades so early on in your career?
It was thrilling and surprising. I was doing a show at the Public Theater. I had been on the road a lot doing shows. I was used to doing a show for 3 months and then maybe taking a month off and then doing another show, going to a different town. And so I was kind of used to that. So one night after the show, I went to my box, my mailbox, and there was a note in there from a casting director who said, "I think I have something you'd be right for, give me a call, blah, blah, blah." So I called her. It was Betty Ray from CBS at Guiding Light. And she said, "Come on in. I want to do a screen test for you on this soap opera." Now, my mom and my sisters and all that stuff had watched soap operas, but I was never really a person that watched them. So I wasn't really, I wasn't cognizant of like the show or anything like that. It was just another gig.
Mm-hmm.
And moreover, when I got the material, I thought, "Oh, this isn't exactly Shakespeare. This is pretty kind of easy stuff." Okay. And I got the part, and then it was a 3-year contract. That was so it was 92 to 95.
Oh, okay,
so that was kind of a shock for me. I thought, whoa, I'm going to stay in one place for 3 years. That's kind of unusual, but okay, let's check it out. It's a door, it opened, I'm going to walk through it. And once that happened, I wasn't really thinking too much about awards. I didn't even know that they gave Emmys for soap operas at that time. I was just focused on, I would show up on the in the studio, and I would do my theater exercises before my vocal warm-ups and my physical.
This guy over here think he is doing his theater exercises. I'll show him.
My question is: did you use the sexiest man in soap top 10 list? Did you use that at all? Are you an advantageous type of guy?
Man, it was like, it's just chick city at that point. Once that happened, just, women were, honestly, it just came out of the woodwork. You walk around the city and I'd literally have girls tap me on the shoulder and ask me out, stuff like that.
I know the feeling, man.
I indulged in that, you might say.
Yeah.
But I think the theater mentality, as opposed to, say, the television and film world mentality, hadn't sort of gotten out of my system yet. So the idea of leveraging that or sort of using that as a stepping stone to get someplace else, or PR or that kind of thing, really wasn't on my mind. I always thought about the work, what about this scene? What's my motivation? What's my super objective? What's this? What's that? And so I missed a lot of that, I guess you could call it that entrepreneurial kind of approach to things. I was more of a purist in the sense of the work.
That's cool.
That makes sense. Now talk about stepping it up here. Now, in 1995, you make your big screen debut with The Reason Why You're Here, of course, Dead Presidents.
You waiting on the number 11 bus?
Now, we read that the production began around Halloween, if I'm not mistaken, of 94 and actually wrapped up in February of 95. If you can recall, how long were you on set for?
I was on set for, I think maybe 3 or 4 days. I got hired for a 1-day stint, and then they changed the role. So they said, we don't really know what we're going to do, but we know you're going to be a cop.
Okay.
So just show up. So I was like, okay.
And a feather leather net.
And I felt a leather neck. That's so, I showed up, and like I said, I'm always kind of like, improvisational, whatever you want to do, let's just figure it out. And so actually, I was supposed to go to Mexico with my mom for a soap event. I was going to take my mom to this event in Mexico, and we were supposed to leave the next day. So we shot a little bit with the police officer, and then at the end of the day, the producer said, hey, they want you to come back. They want to do a little more. Can you come back tomorrow? I said, man, I got to go. Got to go to Mexico to do this thing, and I'm taking my mom, and she's looking forward to it. And he said, do you want it or not? And I said, oh, man, So I called my mom. I apologize. I'm like, look, this happened. She was like, go, do your work, whatever. And so we literally kind of made that role up. I mean, that whole scene with, I think it was a Woodburn.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That was totally improv. I mean, we just, that whole thing was just, I was just riffing, and they would.
It felt natural. It did feel natural. I'll put both. No, brother, I think you're mistaken about that bus. I caught it yesterday.
It felt natural, but it built so seamlessly into the tension of the scene and setting things off so subtly.
He's talking about they were improv, and he peeled that big ass map out his back. Like, no, brother, right here, I got it right here. Don't you worry about it.
So if they weren't quite sure what they were going to do with you as far as what character you were going to play, what was the audition process like as far as getting a role?
It was with Alan and Albert, and it was for a role that didn't actually make it to the film. It was like I think it was like a crazy homeless guy or something like that. It was like 2 or 3 lines. And I went in and, I did my thing, and I remember they laughed. Oh man, they laughed, they were like, that's it, that's the guy, And so we were, it was a good time. And when I left there, I thought, man, I booked that. I know I booked that. And then I learned that they weren't going to do that role. My agent called and said they're not going to do that role. So they're going to come up with something. We just don't know what it is yet. So I said, okay, that's cool. And eventually they said, you're going to be a cop. We don't know what you're going to do, but you're going to be a cop.
And one of the only black cops that we saw in the film, might I add. I mean, it's just, hey, you were there, man. So
you were when I was watching the scene, it was real. What was really cool to me about it was it seemed like you were privy to what was going on, or at least had some kind of hunch that something wasn't right, and you were kind of like cat and mousing Bokeem in that moment. Like, no, I'll check. Like almost like calling a bluff. Was that how you were playing it? Since it was improv, I feel like I could ask you what your motivation was in that moment. Like, how did you know the context of what was happening within that scene around it and everything, and how you would play into it?
Yeah, my approach to it was it was a very deserted scene. We were out in Brooklyn, and there was really nothing on the street. It was just kind of deserted. And there was this guy just kind of standing at the bus stop, kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. There's nothing going on my beat, but here's this guy, But I was just kind of like, my approach to it was like, I don't want to telegraph. I don't want to, obviously I don't know what's going to happen, but what are you doing on my block? What's up with you, man? Let's see you'll see if you check out. I'll check it out. Brown on patrol, blah, blah, blah. That was kind of my approach to it, yeah.
I like that. That was slick.
You wanted to know if it was Skippy that
he blew it. He was around there looking all nervous, smoking cigarettes and shit. You know what I'm saying? But it reminded me. You should know what I'm talking about. It reminded me of when Queen Latifah used to be throwing those cassettes out the car, and that's how they found them, just by doing little stuff like that. I was saying how he flicked all the cigarettes on the ground from standing there. But I was going to ask you, you're one of the few people that have actually gotten an opportunity to do what I call like 3 levels of acting, where you can go from the stage, you can do the theater, and the big screen. So let me ask you this: being this your first feature film, what was it like adapting to that kind of environment versus the theater or television?
It was kind of tough, because there's a lot of things happening on a movie set, and you don't always know where the focal point is. Whereas in theater, of course, you always know where the focal point is. It's with the director. He's right in front of you usually. And then when he's not there and you're in performance, it's with the audience. They're right there. Soap opera is a little bit similar in that we shoot in sort of a flat, sort of a it's 3 cameras and they're right in front of you. So there's one there, one there, one there. So you kind of know what's going on. When I got on the film set, there's so much activity, so many people doing so many different things, and the director isn't readily apparent. You don't really know where they are. They got video over there, but you don't really know whether they're in there or not sometimes. So it's kind of hard to know what to focus on. Sometimes I remember even showing up and nobody shows, hey, Monte, welcome, come on over here. This is what you do. And you go over here. You just show up and it's like, what do I do? There's a name on a trailer. Okay, so I just go in there and hang out. And eventually somebody will come and say,
we need you.
Come over here and get into makeup, or, I'm gonna see you in wardrobe or something like that. So I was a little insecure about that. At the time, I thought I used to have this thing, man, where on every job, I always thought I was going to get fired. I always thought, fuck, they're going to hate this and they're going to fire me and nobody's talking to me and nobody showed up to say anything to me. It's because there's somewhere going to get rid of that guy. How do we get rid? I had that kind of
imposter syndrome.
Exactly. Somebody was on to me at some point, I thought.
Where do you think that came from?
I think it's probably natural for actors. Sometimes, especially in film, you don't really get that immediacy in terms of feedback, whether it be from an audience or whether it be from your director or something like that. So sometimes that can feel kind of weird. You do something, you put something out there, and then there's just silence. You're kind of like, well, was that good or was it bad?
But you're not just Monti Sharp. You're Emmy award-winning Monti Sharp at this point. That's crazy that the imposter syndrome, do you still feel that today?
There's a little bit of that, there's always a bit of that because you're always, you're always trying something. There's always a bit of actor's invention. So you try something. Sometimes it might be just a small thing. Sometimes it might be a big thing, but you don't always get that immediate feedback about whether or not that worked or didn't work. And that can often make you, I heard a story about Robert De Niro, even today, that someone said he's an extremely insecure actor on set. He's constantly asking the crew, was that good? Did you like that? Or, that work or not? Maybe it's not insecurity. Maybe it's just feedback. So you can self-correct. You need that feedback. So you
real time.
Yeah.
That's one thing about that Broadway. You'll know right away whether they're feeling you or not. Instantly, you're going to get it right away. Now, clearly the directors, you really must have won them over because, again, like you say, usually when a role hits the cutting room floor, so does the actor. But clearly they created a role for you, in such a role that you're in such a substantial scene in the film. This is very pivotal. You actually are working, as you mentioned, with Bokeem Woodbine, not to mention Chris Tucker is on set. So let me ask you this here. Now, you literally go from not knowing what your role being cut, and now you're thrust into this situation. Could you explain what it's like when you guys are in that scene, and what was it like to work with those actors and just really be thrust into that?
It's a little difficult because those guys had already been working together for many weeks, so they've already gelled. They're sort of familiar with one another. They're horsing around. They've got their routine going, and then someone shows up who's not a part of that reindeer game. You know what I mean? So there's a kind of, hey, who is this guy? Or maybe we like him, maybe we don't. That kind of thing. Is he going to be an asshole? You don't really know. So my approach has always been the work. Look, whether I'm an asshole or not, whether you're an asshole or not, I came here to do a job and I'm ready to do my job. I recall there's a moment in there where I pull my gun out and I start trotting over across the street. Well, there was a cameraman with a Steadicam, and he's got an assistant who's sort of guarding his back as he walks backwards. And I'm walking toward him. And the first take on that, I started out too fast. And he said, he like went off on me, like, what are you doing? You fucking idiot, or whatever, this, that, or the other. And I said, I didn't really know very much. I'm a human being,
Right.
I said, hey, man, you don't fucking talk to me like that. I can make any correction you need to make. I said, it was a mistake, but you don't fucking talk to me. What the fuck is your problem? Like that. And I just thought, as a human being, you just don't speak to people like that.
Correct.
I mean, I understand what happened. We can make it better, but what are you doing?
Right.
And I think at that moment, it kind of it kind of loosened everybody else up. They were kind of like, oh, okay, you know, this dude is like, you know, real deal or whatever. And so I got a little bit of respect out of that.
Right.
And we were, you know, a lot looser at that point. So
right. I bet take two went a lot better.
Yeah.
Hey, could you just let them know? Just patience, good. Like you got to set the tone. Like you said, it wasn't even an acting thing. It was a human being thing. Whether I'm fixing your fries or making your bed, just we can fix it. Just don't talk to me like that.
I don't know what kind of day you're having, but you're not going to work your temper out on me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Watch how fast I walk up to you if I was going too fast before.
Yeah. Exactly.
In uniform too. You get to partake in a shootout during your scene. And I was wondering what that was like, especially like right now with gun safety on set being such a hot button topic. There's like guns ablazing in your scene all throughout you. And like, what is it like when you're walking? And I'm sure some of it's added in post, but you're like walking and seriously like walking in faith that everything goes right, that everybody did their job correctly. Was that on your mind at all?
For most of the scene, no. I trusted everyone. The weapons master makes it clear, you know, everybody has to clear the weapons. So you look, you can see, you feel confident that everything's taken care of. You don't actually get to handle the actual picture weapon until picture's up. Rehearsals are with a dummy gun, so there's no real danger there. And in this particular case, I didn't really feel a little nervous until the squib hit on the head. So they had a squib in the hat, and I knew that was going to go off, and I'd never taken a squib hit before. So I didn't really know what that was going to be like. And that made me feel a little, okay, they're about to put basically a small firecracker in my hat. And if this doesn't go well, you know.
That's maybe it.
So the only thing that went off on set that day was the camera guy.
There you go.
And then actually we'll get into the logistics of of getting shot in the head, because it was a great shot.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, you definitely do get shot here. I was going to say, and not just by anybody. You get shot. I mean, you get shot by Smokey and not the bear. Of course.
Knock the fuck out.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Clearly, Chris Tucker here puts a bullet in the back of your head, and you see your facial expression. That beat is, to me, very golden in that moment. And the X wound, like you said, what do you call it? A schwib? Squib. Yes, it comes out. It's a very gruesome death scene. Let's just say that. Can you tell us about the logistics of that? Like you were saying, did someone come over and like, hey, don't worry, it's gonna go off. Just let us do our thing, or was this like you said, this could really kind of ruin me if I don't know what's going on here? What was your mindset? Because you're not only acting no more, now you're an action star.
And what did it feel like when it went off?
It was quite a little pop. And, you know, you feel it and you hear it. It's literally like a firecracker.
Did they do it more than one scene, or is it just one time, one go?
No, this particular thing was one take, man. I remember Alan and Albert, and it's pretty serious. You know, they're like, listen, you know, here's what's going to happen. We're going to put this explosive in your hat. There's a tube that's running over your head and then down your back. In fact, in that scene, if you look closely, when Chris Tucker steps in, his gun enters frame, you can see the tube in the back of my uniform. You can kind of see it, kind of the impression of it if you look for it.
I'm gonna go back and look.
But they said, listen, you know, this is gonna be loud. It's not gonna hurt, but you're gonna feel it. And we have one take. We have to get this, you know. So there was that, and then there was the pressure of the one take. And so when it went off, I think I'm shooting the gun or whatever, and then when it goes off, it got my attention, you know. And in that same second, I thought, well, fuck, you can't blow this because it's one take. And so it was like a paralyzed kind of a moment where I thought, die, dude, die.
It would have been so bad. You're like, oh,
yeah. You'll never take me alive.
So it was quite a shock.
Oh yeah, that's crazy that you get one take to have the reaction, and you don't really fully know what to expect. Like it worked out, but I could see how like someone like me, I would have been that's loud. Was it supposed to be that loud? Cut. Like I would have. You would think they would have done like a rehearsal with it. So you can anticipate how it was going to feel. That's crazy.
You want to give people as less time as possible to let them know you're putting an explosive in their head.
Yeah, we're putting an explosive in your
head.
So
right now, girls, we're going in 3, 2, and like go. So yeah, that's. Yeah.
They did say, I remember the night of the premiere, we went to the premiere screening, and I think it was Alan Hughes who said, pulled me aside and he said, look, man, he's like, I just want you to know your death scene is the most expensive single shot in the movie. And I said, why? I said, what, really? He said, yeah, because some of the blood jumped onto the camera lens. So they had a big old spot of blood on there, and they had to remove it digitally at a time when digital wasn't ubiquitous. It wasn't sort of a normal thing. It was a very expensive correction to that shot that they had to make.
Wow, DSLRs running around back then.
So there's a man. Well, why they were in there? Why didn't they digitally remove the tube and you're on your neck?
A little bit more money. There you go.
Exactly.
What were the Hughes brothers like to work with?
They were a lot of fun, man. They seemed to just be on cloud nine. I mean, they were having a great time, and the audition was just a lot of fun. They were laughing and getting into it and feeding off of each other. And when I got to set, they had these scooters. You know, they were riding around on these scooters, and they were just playing and, you know, zipping up and down the street while all the other departments are doing their stuff. And honestly, they didn't really look or behave like directors. They just looked like a couple of dudes who happened to be on set just goofing off. I mean, that's really what they seem to be. But I also know that they're very, you know, heavily prepared. They storyboard, you know, very specifically. The storyboards are almost exactly what the shots turn out to be. And so I guess that preparation, you know, later I would learn that kind of preparation will allow you to, once you get to the set, it's just execution. And you've got people that are doing the things that need to be executed. You can chill out. You can relax. You can have fun. You know,
I think that's important too, to keep your head clear. So if a problem or curveball does arrive, you're more in, you're more in the headspace. Yeah. What kind of direction? Do you remember what kind of direction you got? Because it's just very interesting to me at the scene that such a pivotal scene was improvisational. Like, did they give you any like beats to hit, or like the direction as far as the context of where you're coming from and where it's going from there to? Or like how much time they wanted you to get in and out of the exchange?
Not really, man. I think my sense in retrospect is I don't think they knew exactly what they wanted when I showed, you know, when I hit the set. But whatever it was that I was doing, for them it was working. Mm-hmm. And so it was more a question of, oh, now let's get a shot of his feet, and then let's get this shot, and then let's get this shot. Oh, this would be cool. Can you come back on Monday? Because we want to do this, that, the other. Da, da, da. So I never got anything like, okay, you know, make it more this way or make it less this way. In fact, no one even said any lines, really. I didn't have you get the little sides or whatever. I think they might have scripted like maybe one line or something like that. But I just, was just talking. I was just in the moment and trying to be real in my character. And I made up some lines, not really thinking that necessarily they're going to use that, but that was just for me. That was my process of, doing my work. And they wound up, keeping that,
That was really good. It was very natural, unforced. Now, before we move on from Dead Presidents, is there anything you think the fans of the film will want to know about your experience that you can tell them, whether it was in front of the camera, behind the camera, or just something that they may not know?
Well, there's something that happened when I rapped on that shoot that, I don't know, what are we talking, 20 years ago, whatever, 30 years ago. It still, haunts me to this day. Okay. And as I said, I was supposed to go to Mexico and I was going to go pick up my mom and this and that. And so when I rapped for that day, I was making a beeline to get out of there because I needed to go make some calls and this and that. And I got about halfway down the street toward the trailers, and Chris Tucker came around the corner and he said, "Hey, man." And I turned around and he said, "We should hang out." And I turned back and I said, "Okay, man, let's hook up." And I went on into my trailer, and then, because we had call sheets, I figured we could get, but he probably meant like, let's hang out like right now. Let's go get a drink or let's go do whatever. And then, so I got swept up in the whole Mexico thing and I had to go and then come back and this and that. And I never called Chris Tucker, and we never really talked again. And I thought, boy, that's a huge missed opportunity, right? Right there.
Hey, man,
Uh,
we supposed to be
yeah.
talking, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
God,
that is
that would have been
crazy.
that would have been a very you don't hold anything against your mom still for that over that, do you? Like, it comes up at family dinner every time.
That's great. Yeah, that is crazy, man.
Yeah, that's one for
One for the ages.
yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause we actually, well, I'll cut this part out because it'll come before. Oh, but no, we actually just say we actually chose Chris Tucker as our scene stealer. We picked like our favorite performer out of the film, and Chris Tucker got it for us because his like, especially people that mainly know him from like Friday and Rush Hour, to go back and see a performance that he did in something like this was just
Yeah.
incredible.
A lot of range.
In 1996, you got to be directed by Mr. Soul Glow himself, Eric LaSalle, for his HBO film Rebound, which also boasted a plethora of larger than life talent, including Don Cheadle, James Earl Jones, Michael Beach.
Yeah.
Michael Beach.
And every time I say Michael Beach, I just picture him sitting in Morgan Freeman's office like a child.
I was picking up a piece.
And our good friend Forrest Whitaker. What was that experience like, working with so many big talents and being directed by? I'm always interested when like an actor directs actors, and what that experience is like for you.
That was a great experience with Eric because, like you said, he's an actor. He went on to have his own acting class. He speaks the language of actors, so he's able to actually give you actionable things to do, and help you access the moment that he wants you to inhabit. Starting with the audition process, he was just very, really warm guy. You feel kind of, sometimes you can go into a situation and you can feel the pressure. Directors under pressure from a lot of different angles, and sometimes you feel that from the director.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, Eric was just super cool, and I mean that from his point of view. He was handling whatever pressure that was on him like cool as a cucumber. And the set was it was very chaotic. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think there were a lot of extras that day in my scene. We were in a park or something like that, and there's a lot of people around, and it was just I remember that being a lot of chaos on that set, just that one day that I was there. So it was intense. That was an intense, and Michael Beach is a very intense guy. He's like, I remember going into the makeup trailer with I had picked out the wardrobe and given me this hat to wear. It was like, this big leather floppy hat, and so I go in, I sit down in the makeup chair, and Michael Beach is sitting next to me. And I remember him from a film called One False Move with Billy Bob Thornton and Bill Paxton and Cindy Williams, one of my favorite movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's Michael Beach right there. And he was like, what is that? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, that hat. He was like, that shit ain't gonna work, man. He's like, Eric ain't gonna like that shit. He was like,
oh my God.
Are you in the wardrobe department? What do you think you gave me this? He was like, nah, man, that ain't gonna work. I don't know what's up with that, And I was like kind of taken aback, like, okay, so says you, But by the time I made it to the set, guess what?
Hey.
The hat was out.
If anybody knows, wearing clothes must be a new experience for you. All right, now let's say this now. Just 3 years after stepping out of the show of Guidance Lights, David Grant, you stepped into the shoes of Lewis McLeod, a recurring character on multiple episodes as the world turns. We heard that, and we actually know for a fact that shooting soap operas can be very fast paced and often only allowing the actor or the talent to really get one take. Is that really what it's like? And was that your experience with that type of genre?
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's particularly, I guess, a special scene or an event that they're going to take a little bit more time on. Mm-hmm. In general, yeah, you one take. As long as you don't chew it up too bad, you get the message across. We got to move on. So it's super fast paced. Yeah. Anybody that can't keep up with that flow is you're holding up the band, and it's not a popular thing to do.
And because it's so fast paced, isn't it a lot of it? Just kind of hitting bullet points in dialogue rather than memorizing specific lines?
Actors work differently. There's some actors who will, let's call it, make it your own. And then there's some actors who try to stick to the script. I'm a script guy. I like scripts. I like to have something to say. And then if there's a need to sort of modify it somehow, if you write bad, if your script is bad, I used to do these plays out in New Jersey for a group home for troubled teens. And they would write plays in order to deal with terrible things that would happen in their home lives, And these plays were terrible, they were terrible plays, but they expressed what these kids were going through. And it was important for those kids to hear what they had written, not for you to make it your own, because you're not from where they're from. You don't know what's going on. You're just some actor's been bussed in from New York. So that was a very early lesson in writers often want to hear what they've written. They don't really want you necessarily commenting on whether or not that's good or bad.
Yeah.
They want to hear what they wrote.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for saying that. As a writer who often deals with these make it their own performers.
Well, let me help you out real quick. I'm not a script guy. I want that script to look at me and say,
quick.
You know what? I want to make him my own. I want the script to have the exact,
okay, and I respect that. But as the guy that was sitting up until 3 o'clock in the morning, like trying to find the perfect phrasing of this specific line of dialogue, don't be like, yeah, script reads me. I don't read the script. I'm like, all right.
Sometimes we see what you can, but it's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's at the both. I think both sides. Some of the greatest performances have come out of somebody making it their own and allowing themselves to be in the moment and not be like my fault is the opposite of his, where I am dictated completely and wholeheartedly by the script. Like it gets in my head and I can't deviate from it, and it's almost to a fault.
Yeah.
In 1999, you played a civil rights leader in the TV miniseries The 60s, and we actually worked on an independent production about Selma. And when we were doing that, I realized that there's something about experience in a time and place through the care and consideration and to the detail and authenticity that's usually applied in a film or TV production. Now, what we did was a very independent production. There wasn't a lot of money to go into it, so that attention to detail couldn't be so drastic. But I can only imagine with the levels of like a budget, like a major TV production going on, what that aesthetic was like, or the attention that they could apply to the aesthetic. And you're kind of walking into this time and place physically, and as an actor you're taking yourself there emotionally. What was that experience like, especially like someone like you, because you were born kind of at the tail end of the whole revolution that happened in the 60s?
That was a pretty emotional job for me, and I'd say a bit, it was upsetting. I think my dad was the first Black lawyer in Northeast Louisiana. He was fairly instrumental in winning the abolition of segregated water fountains in public buildings, and he was lead counsel for Elijah Muhammad in the South during the 50s and 60s. So I grew up with a heightened awareness of the civil rights movement. And of course, I lived in Louisiana, and there's still places in Louisiana today where sun goes down.
Sun downtown.
Sundown town. They make tourist spots out of plantations.
Yeah.
It's still very, So being in a situation on that project where I think we were in Pasadena, where some of these old like soda fountains or pharmacies or drugstores still exist, which I think we shot in one of them for a sit-in scene. And then also the confusion emotionally, where I remember one scene where we're doing this crowd scene and the actor is, we're marching on this thing, and one of the white actors says, his line is, "You damn niggers, get on home now." That's his line. And he's a great actor, he's committing to his moment, and then cut, and then you go to lunch, and you all sit around and laugh and ha and shoot the shit, and then you go back and you assume these attitudes. it was hard. It was hard to kind of go in and out of that.
It's very jarring. I mean, to his point, when we were working on Selma, it was these guys, and they were really decent and to good actors, and they wanted to do a good job, but you can tell they were uneasy with some of the things they had to do with portraying violence towards people that they were just offset with. And I had to let them know, like you always have talked about in this interview, it's about the work. If you truly care about the craft, you have to do this. You have to show the hate, because if you don't portray it the correct way, someone will just think it was just another day in Disneyland and civil rights, and that was never the case. So you're 100% correct. You got to toe that line.
An actor cried.
Saying that, N-word over and over and over. Right, yeah, definitely, and that definitely happens here.
It makes me think about pictures like say Django, where you've got these huge stars. They've all got huge. I don't want to say this. It's not meaning this in a bad way, but they've all got enormous egos. They have incredible careers behind them. They have all that credibility stored up, and then there's those moments that go back and forth, and then you go at the end of the day, you go home, and you come back and you do this. That's.
Did you hear the story? Did you hear the story on Django where Leo DiCaprio was? He was having a hard time with his dialogue, specifically the racial slurs, and Sam Jackson pulled him aside and was like, "Motherfucker, like, stop making this about you. This is just another Tuesday for us. Say your lines."
Yeah, we hear it all the time. So this is nothing. Go for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that definitely did happen. Now, I want to say this: you're one of the bravest actors I know, because again, you've done like, you got the television, you had the theater, you got your big role, and you were just so brave. You actually decided that you were going to go into this director's chair. Okay, so it's 2000. You directed a short film which you also starred in called Young Americans. Let me ask you this: what led you into bravely stepping into the director role, and what was that experience like for you?
Well, when I got out of high school, my first college experience was in radio, TV, film. And so I was always, I loved film history. I loved filmmaking. And so I had a break. I think I was doing General Hospital at the time. And so it was either when that job ended or somewhere I had a break in there. And I was reading the Penny Saver. Anybody remember what a Penny Saver is, a newspaper? And I saw an Airflex camera for sale. And so I thought, I'm going to go buy this camera and just mess around, shoot some stuff with some friends, just, see what's going on. And one night at the Vista Theater in Hollywood, I went to a midnight showing of Orson Welles' film, Touch of Evil. And man, it was just so cool. And I loved it. I went home and I wrote this film noir piece, like, a couple of hours later. So I was going to do it with my friends, just get them together and just mess around with this new camera. But I met a girl who was going to AFI in the producing program. And she said, "Let me produce this for you." And I thought, I'm just going to mess around. I don't know that I need a producer. She's like, "No, let me find you some people." One thing led to another, and she had crewed me up with some great people from AFI. And by coincidence, her cousin was a friend of mine named Wendell Pierce. So she said, "I'm going to call Wendell and see if Wendell would show up and do a part." I said, "That's cool, man. Wendell and I go way back." Wendell was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." And then I had another friend that I worked with out in Minneapolis, Wayne Wilderson, great actor, funny guy. He came on, and, it just kind of snowballed, and it turned into, a great production with great people. And we were all sort of into this film noir world. And we really managed to create something there. As a director, it really thrust me into that management role. All of a sudden, there were all these moving parts. And so you got to manage all of that. And that was a big learning curve. How do I manage this? Every department's got issues every hour of the day. Somebody's always calling you this or that. I remember this is a funny story. The prop girl, I rented a picture car. And the picture car was this red convertible with white wall tires. For some reason, the white walls were critical for me. But I only had 3 of them. One tire was black. So I called the prop girl. Her name was Joey. I'll never forget her. And I said, "Listen, can you paint the one black tire? Can you paint a white wall on it?" She was like, "Yeah." So I show up the day of that shot, and the white wall is really just crap. It's, it's dripping and this and that. And I was like, "Joanne, what the hell? What kind of paint job is this?" Turns out she had painted the white wall with Philadelphia cream cheese.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I still don't know Why
She
she
had a
use
can-do
what you
attitude,
have.
though.
Yeah.
She did have a can-do attitude. You know, and she went for it.
got it done.
That's in
You see somebody over at craft service with the bagels, like, man, what the fuck's that cream cheese? Joanne!
in I think it was 2007. I directed a film called Tomorrow Morning, and I had an experience when I was a teenager. Have you ever heard of angel trumpets? The plant.
No.
There's you could buy them at any garden store. There's two different kinds. There's Brumagia and Datura. Brumagia droops down. Datura stands straight up.
Okay.
Brumagia will get you really high. Datura will kill you. So you gotta be very careful which ones you get, kids. So I had a bad experience with them. I went and got some of these angel trumpets when they were out of season. So the Daturas were drooping. They looked like Brumagias. I ate them, had to call poison control the next day.
Holy cow.
It left a impression on me. So when I wrote the script, I put this into the story. And when it came time for production, angel trumpets were out of season. So we were able to find like 2 random ones at a garden shop on the other side of town, but they were dead. So like your situation, we had to paint them to make them look alive. I forgot to tell the actor that there was paint on them, and he was kind of like method, like, no, I'm gonna go for this, and he really ate them. He actually did get high, but it was on spray paint and not the flower itself.
And he hasn't been able to direct a film since. And I just want to let you know, we were not friends, and I didn't know him at the time, because when he said we, he meant him. He took the angel trumpets. I was taking the devil's baritone. I don't know what the hell you had going on, bro.
So that was the hardest lesson that I learned on the set of a film I directed. What was the hardest lesson that you had to learn when you stepped on the other side of the camera?
Was it managing people, or was it something different?
It was time is money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the hardest lesson was, because I went into it with the idea that, we're going to work within a loose framework, and we're going to find these characters, and we're going to find the truth of the scene. Dude,
Truth is, we got to shoot this shit. Go.
Like, it was draining my bank account. Like, I mean, it was insane. And so ultimately I learned that this idea that I had of this organic process of, finding these characters, super expensive. And that was a huge, huge lesson that I learned.
I really like, can we do that again? I really want to get a character. No, are you going to pay for it? Next, let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my motivation. Define it, the budget, bitch. Let's go.
That was a big one, man. Huge lesson there.
In 2005, you would reunite, in a sense, with dead President star Freddie Rodriguez, because you appeared in an episode of Alan Ball's fantastic show 6 Feet Under, which is one of the best season finales in any show in the history of shows. I can't remember the specific episode, Dancing with Me, that you were in, but did you have any scenes with Freddie?
I did not. I didn't have any scenes with Freddie. I had one scene with, I forget the girl's name, the female lead on that show. I forget her name. But I was a counselor, I think, in a rehab center or something like that. So that was an odd time for me. I really barely really remember that experience. My father had just passed away like the previous year. I was still sort of in a tailspin over that. And I was just kind of walking by paint by numbers at that time.
Cruise control.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. As someone who has acted in virtually, as we've been discussing throughout this interview, every form of the craft in over 3 decades of experience under your belt, what piece of advice would you give to that actor out there that's just getting started, who wants to get into it, and almost a piece of advice that you would give a younger version of you at that time? What advice would you give someone aspiring to do this?
I think the number one thing that I would give them is train yourself. Like, really train yourself, because that's going to allow you to last. You're going to go up and down. And that's like bending a soda can back and forth, and it breaks some people. But the thing that will keep you viable and employable is training. Number one. Number two will be invent. Always invent. When you're on set, there's a great thing, you guys might have seen it, I'm sure, where Michael Caine says, the director said to him one time, Michael, what are you doing? He says, well, I don't have any lines. And the director says, of course you do. He says, you have great things to say. You have wonderful things to say, but you're going to sit there and decide not to say them. So you're never not alive. And by being alive, you're constantly inventing. I just wiped my head. I didn't plan that. That was something that I did in response to a reality that's happening. I'm perspiring a bit, right? Realities continue to happen to you on set, on stage, in front of a camera. Don't deny them. Live them. That's a very important thing to remember. That would be probably the top thing that I would say. Everything else will be sort of, any other ill effects of doing this stuff will be mitigated by that.
When you say training, is that something that's constant for you? Like even as you're working to stay, do you consider being on set training, or do you still seek out like courses or acting groups to try things out even at this point in your career?
I've definitely continued courses, acting classes, over the course of the years here and there. Obviously, working is one of the best forms of training. But I think training is kind of like, it's about what you do. We could all go to the gym, but that's not training.
Mm-hmm.
Training is when you are actually interacting with the tools that are there to make you stronger. And when you know how to use those tools, that's what fundamental training gives you. It gives you the knowledge of how to use them, because you're going to find them everywhere. Mm-hmm. When you show up on a set, they're going to be those tools are going to be there for you. Nobody's going to come up to you and say, hey, use this to accomplish this. You just have to know. Same when you go to the gym, unless you hire a trainer, But you go to the gym, some of those machines, honestly, I don't know what the hell to do with them. I'm lost. But if you know what to do, you can get stronger. You can get better.
Yeah, that's good advice. Stay in practice. Keep training.
That's exactly right.
More recently, you starred in 2020's Killer in Suburbia as Detective Collins, and it seems like you get cast as characters in uniform quite frequently, from your first feature film credit in Dead Presidents as Officer Brown to Officer Joplin in Malcolm in the Middle, Sergeant Anderson and John from Cincinnati, Detective Sean Jones and Jack Rio, Black Cop in Cruise, a prison guard in NCIS Los Angeles, to the most recent Detective Collins in Killer in Suburbia. You should be officially deputized at this point, right?
I guess you're probably right. Yeah.
Well, why do you think you land these roles so often? Going back to your first feature film, where they're like, we don't
Officer
have
Brown.
this with this other role didn't work out, but we see you in a uniform. Is there a particular what do you think it is about you that has that posture that makes casting directors see you in a uniform? And the flip side of that is there a particular character that you haven't had a chance to play yet that you would want a chance to portray?
That's a good question, man. And I'm not really sure of what the answer to that is. I think maybe I'm 6 feet tall. Right now I'm 260, but at my fighting weight, I'm around 220, 230. So I'm a formidable sized person. And I have an ability to be rather direct. Like eye contact is a big thing for me in life, right? My dad used to say, when you shake a man's hand, you look him in the eye. Mm-hmm. That's just what you do. I found in the course of my travels, that's not something people are terribly comfortable with all the time. And so someone who does that projects, I think, a sense of authority or confidence or some sort of, permission to do that. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? Why are you not breaking eye contact with me? That's an authoritative kind of a thing to do. And so I think that natural inclination to look people in the eye might be a part of it.
When you get the callback, are you ever like, God damn it, a cop again?
Honey, get the badge. I'm going back in.
I know the first reaction is probably great. I got the part, but is there ever like, I played 12 cops now. Can I try something else?
I've had the gamut. Like I played a psycho on NYPD Blue. Mm-hmm. I played a homeless killer, the Koreatown killer on Bosch. So I've kind of had a bit of both, from one extreme to the other. So I really don't really think too much about that, in terms of what that, pattern is. But when I hear it like that, I think, wow, that is kind of, that's a lot.
I didn't mean to. I was just trying to elicit a reaction out of you.
Oh, you did mean to do it. You're all about script. You wrote the question. You did mean to do it. Look at him.
I deviated from the script on that one. I wanted to push a little bit because I was projecting how I would feel. But I think what you said earlier about always being alive and reacting to reality could make even like the people in uniform, there's a spectrum to them. So playing one police officer here or a detective or a sergeant over here, they could be completely different people that you get to play.
What I heard from him was what he mentioned earlier was he's employable. He doesn't matter what cop it is. Job, let's go. Let's go. Is there anything non-NDA related, because we don't want to violate those terms, that you're currently working on that you can let audiences know about?
Right now in front of the camera, no, there's a couple of commercials out there. I continue to do commercials on and off. Some Geico, USAA, those are on the air right now.
USAA.
But mainly what I'm doing right now, man, is my whole life since I was a kid, I've always I would draw and paint, things like that. And just this past couple of years, I formalized that and I'm really focusing on that now. In fact, I recently got an art studio, so that's where I'm coming to you guys from today, where I have all my artwork here, and I now have a manager for my art, and I paint and draw as a full-time enterprise. I have
so that's your originals behind you in those two frames. Is that
those are a couple of mine. Let me see if I can swap can I push? Oh.
And that's Sharp Art Studios. Oh wow.
Okay.
Is that Prince?
Some stuff in progress here.
Please tell me I got that right.
Let's see.
That's either Prince or young Michael Jackson, one of the other.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Check this out. Hold on.
Oh shit!
It is.
Fuck yeah! Nose and all. You did that from scratch. You freehanded that?
No, he traced.
That is actually a grid process. But
yes, a grid. Thank you. Yeah. Oh man, that's dope, man. That's fucking dope, bro.
Thank you, man. We got Diana Ross over there.
Wow, damn.
That is a studio. That's a whole
wow. How much you selling one of those things, or how much one of those things go for? Are you just doing for you? Or you got a manager now, so you're basically selling. You're definitely selling.
Yeah, definitely sell them. I price my work at about $3 a square inch, so that's 48 by 48. That one right there probably be about $7,000, maybe.
Oh man, but it's freaking worth it, man. Do you see that attention to detail?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you to do one of us, but no, I don't think we can afford you just yet. So we'll wait.
No, hey, man, I can do some gratis work for some. This is my dad. I want to show you guys my dad. That's my dad right there.
Oh man,
rest in peace. Yeah, that's
I like that, man.
And so you're looking at a portrait, or is that's from a portrait on that one?
That's actually from a photograph of my dad, and it was him and my mom at a dinner party. So my dad passed away, and then they named a courthouse after him in my hometown. So they hired an artist to do a portrait of him to hang in the courthouse, but it didn't really capture his likeness. So I said, well, let me do one, because obviously I know my dad.
Right.
And so I did that one, and they put that one in there.
That is amazing. Have you ever thought about doing one of when you actually got shot in the head when Chris Tucker blew your head out? I mean, seriously, that was just like,
oh yeah, I mean
that'd be dope.
That could sell.
Yeah, I mean, because it's from you.
By the actor that did
this is me killing myself.
Yeah,
it is true. That would be dope, man. I'm telling you. Think about it. Think about it. I only want 1% commish. That's what I'm saying in the industry. Commish.
You could call it. You call it like I should have hung out with him. Like,
yeah,
this is what
I should have went for that drink. This is what happens when you don't drink with Chris Tucker. Bam. All right, listen. I want to tell you this. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I have to say we invite on actors, cinematographers. We've talked to directors, and everybody. You have from what I can tell, the best other talent than what you actually do. Like that drawing, man. Please keep that up, man. I mean, that is amazing, man.
I'll admit, when I heard when I heard like you've done so much already, and when you say, "Yeah, I'm trying paint now," I'm like, "All right, yeah,
You
sure,
remember-
let's
remember that I was
let's
on the
see your
paint list?
drawings." But those are
that was amazing,
legitimately
man.
good. I didn't even have to
I was-
act like they were good. They were really good.
I'm so
Thank
glad I
you.
didn't paint this.
Appreciate that.
Now, before we say goodbye, are there any parting words to the audience you would like to say? It can be a quote, it could be a song, it could just be any words that's on your mind. You want to put positivity in the world, anything you want to say.
Well, I would like to say, look, there's a lot of crazy shit going on out there in the world. But as you look out there and all that negative stuff, war, famine, people going crazy, in the words of Fred Rogers, look for the helpers. Don't focus on the negative stuff. Look for the people who are trying to help. That's my message.
Beautiful sentiment. Say,
I freaking love it, man. I loved you in the film. I love the work that you're doing now. Hopefully, we can have you back on in the future with your future projects and endeavors, or you could just shoot us a link to where we can find those paintings at, man, because that is definitely dope, and we'll be able to put it on when your interview comes on.
yeah,
That's
sure.
awesome, man. I really appreciate you guys, reaching out. I had a great time, and I love what you guys are doing. So anytime, count me in on whatever you guys are doing. If I
We're
can
gonna
help,
hold you to that now. We're gonna hold you to, and
Absolutely.
remember, when you're with us, watch your pace. Don't look up in front of the camera, man. Hey, man, we enjoyed the interview. Thank you so much. Please enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thank you so much, sir.
You're
Thanks.
welcome, guys. Okay.
Thanks,
Talk to
Monty.
you later.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.